Final hour overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. Best bets later in the hour. Mark Masters coming up here in a moment. I've got my list. It's a Thursday, a 5-pack. Leafs worst trades. Subjective, mine. Everyone's going to see this differently, and I know it's going to lead to a lot of blowback.
Yeah.
And it's a part of American Thanksgiving. We're thankful that these aren't going to happen moving forward.
That's why we did it today. We're thankful it's a thing of the past, and we're thankful that it won't be a thing of the future. And tracking the football game that's currently on, it is now 13-10, I believe. I think the Giants just kicked a field goal. So 13-10 first half. Earlier today, the Lions beat the Bears 23-20, and we got Packers and Dolphins tonight. I haven't seen the latest on the weather in Green Bay, but it's all about Tua and whether or not he can get it done tonight. If it gets windy, if it's cold, how's he going to perform? So we'll get to that a little bit later on with our best bets. Again, brought to you by FanDuel. Matt Eberflus, the head coach of the Bears, is dealing with some heat today. I'm sure he didn't see his Thanksgiving playing out this way, where he's got to answer for what happened at the end of the game, and sure he doesn't love being compared to one of our favorites, Freddie Kitchens. But we have the viz and the audio of Freddie, who famously, as the head coach of the Bears, once ran a draw play on a 4th and 9.
The Browns.
4th and 9, ran a draw play. Didn't work out, and here's how Freddie responded to it post-game.
Better job for him.
What happened on the 4th and 9 play call?
Bad call.
Is that play? Did you want?
That's it. Got the beard, the low brim, the hoodie, just chewing gum, so angry. Bad call.
Just bad call.
Bad call.
I think Freddie had enough. He kind of knew everything was on the table, and it was just like, get me the hell out of here.
Yeah. Freddie Kitchens, I think he was aware he wasn't qualified for that job.
Like, as great as some of the life
now?
is in pro sports, guys, I'm sure maybe even there was a tiny bit of it with Patrick Waugh. I'm sure there's a bunch of moments where you're just like, you could fire me right now and I wouldn't care. Mm-hmm. Gotta be.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you have a guaranteed contract and you know you're getting paid anyway. Why wait until the end of the year? You're going to fire me. Right. Just get me out of here so I can go home and relax. I don't want to deal with the pressure anymore. I don't want to deal with the grind of having to go through game tape and pretending I like these players or that they like me. It's a mess. Get me out of here.
Yeah.
Please.
Patrick Waugh has so much money and, like you say, fame and that. He's going to shoot from the hip. Like, sometimes I think there is. I can't think of recent history of any coach that knew he was going out that just threw in the towel and said, I'm going to burn this place to the ground on the way out. Like, I think for the most part, everybody toes the line, says the right thing. You know, the recent history, now he was caught, people were reading his lips. Wasn't Jay Woodcroft walking off the ice in San Jose saying, I think that's it? He said that to Dave Manson or something like that.
That's it for us.
I think that's it for us. And it was. I think he actually coached one more game
later. Yeah, it was a game later, but still, like, that's, I don't know. It's just a weird, like, if you're a coach and you know you're like Dable or guys like that, like, if you know you're on your way out, like, just
it's tough, man.
Shoot from the hip. Say these guys are terrible.
Because
what do you want me to do?
You're trying to keep the players in line, too. That's got to be the hardest thing is, regardless of the sport, if you're a coach and you know you're done, your players know you're done. The players know you're not a concern for me in terms of, like, how I'm operating on a daily basis.
Players know everything. They know if the team's good enough, bad enough. They know everything. Like,
right.
You can't bluff them.
Exactly. And you still have to be professional. You have to show up on time. You have to play. But you don't have to listen as much. Like, you're not that worried because it's like, this guy, I don't care how this guy feels about me. He's not going to be around. You're out of here.
Right.
And that happens, I'm sure, a lot in pro sports. But anyway, the Leafs off today, the whole NHL off today. The Leafs are off tomorrow, back in action on Saturday in Tampa. They've been playing so well. I thought they played decently last night. It just, Florida was showing up, and I think they were taking 2 points. I think that was basically Stolarz had to stand on his head to win that game last night because the Leafs, they've just been in it in terms of how many injuries they're dealing with, and the other team's allowed to play and play well, and Florida had not been playing very well, and you knew they were going to get a good effort, and I think that's what the Panthers brought last night. But another injury. I think that's the news of the game that comes out of it for the Leafs. Bobby McMann is injured, and not sure exactly what his status is, but I can't imagine he'll play on Saturday night. And to look back on last night, start turning the page and looking ahead to Saturday night, here's our TSN Maple Leaf reporter, Mark Masters. Mark, what's it like covering this team on a daily basis, and how often is it simply just injury talk when you're around the team?
Well, yeah, I mean, since Auston Matthews left the lineup, it's been a lot of injury talk, a lot of Auston Matthews talk, and then it just piles up so much and so fast. It's been kind of crazy, but then they keep winning, so it hasn't really become the story after a game, at least until last night, where you really heard some frustration in the voice of Mitch Marner when he was asked about the lack of 5-on-5 offense, and said, man, we're down half our forward group right now, so it's tough, and they're doing their best to limit the 5-on-5 goals against. But there's a lot of young guys, a lot of guys that have been in the minors now that are in pretty prominent roles, and it's a big ask. So even Craig Berube last night saying it is frustrating to see another forward go down. I mean, Bobby McMann leads the team with 3 even strength goals since Matthews exited the lineup. It's been hard to come by those goals, and he's one of the guys who's been able to provide that offense. And then to see him go out in this big game, I think that adds to the frustration. You walk into Florida, and because of everything you were saying coming into the interview, it looked like it was going to be a night for the Panthers. But if you could ever win that game, you're up 5 points, and then it's a lot of momentum going into Saturday. So it was maybe a small opportunity missed, but a tough ask last night. And yeah, it's just been a lot of injury talk lately around this team.
What kind of relief is it looking like Saturday night? Mark, give us the goods.
Yeah, I mean, it sure looks like Matthews is coming back. He's looked fine in the practice and the morning skate that he's been in. And it's, that's what, Berube hinted, after the game last night. He said, well, hopefully we're going to get a couple of bodies back. So maybe that bodes well for Matthew Nyes as well, who's eligible to be activated off injured reserve for that game. We'll get a better sense at practice tomorrow afternoon here in Fort Lauderdale before they head to Tampa. But, yeah, I mean, at this point, it feels like you're trending certainly to see Matthews on Saturday, but maybe Matthew Nyes as well. And so then you lose McMahon, at least you're up 1 and get some fresh blood there, because it's been tough. Obviously, I mean, William Nylander is playing with a guy with 1 goal, and Nick Robertson and Pontus Holmberg, who's got 1 empty net goal. It's really dropping off after that top line right now.
I think we can all agree, and Mark, I'll get you to weigh in here. Like, we heard nothing from the league on Nylander today, right? Like that, I didn't,
I mean, he got 4, which I think was appropriate. He got him.
I thought it was
good.
appropriate. He did get him, and he got his stick up. But I think that's about it. Like, I didn't see anything else. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong.
No
Mark,
fines to my knowledge. No
That's
suspensions.
what it's listen. He got his stick up, and Schmidt paid the price there a little bit on the chin, But, I thought it was appropriately called, but no supplemental or anything like that. Oh, what did you make of it?
I'm with you. I mean, I think a part of me says that, Jamie, because I don't want to see another guy go down, and it's like...
No kidding.
It's that's where my bias is. It's like, I can't get past that.
Right.
We would have heard by now.
Oh, you would have heard of a hearing or a call or whatever.
Something, yeah. I don't, and Willie knew it. I was a bit surprised that no one went at Willie last night. He just kind of skated to the box, and
especially Florida.
I don't think they saw it though. It was kind of behind the play, like, and he was just working his way. It looked like he was trying to push off, and he gets his stick up, and Schmidt eats it pretty good, but ultimately, I don't think in a 99 out of 100 times Willie doesn't make that play. I think he just tries to push off and buy a little space for himself. The most I would have thought, and I didn't think he deserved anything, was maybe a fine. Just say, you know what, you got your stick up or whatever, you got to be in control of it. But I didn't think, and I saw some chatter online. That's why I wanted your guys' opinion
I think
on it.
I think it was called appropriately. Give him a 4 games over. He got Schmidt. Schmidt's okay. He'll be fine.
He might. Can he get a fine this late? Like, maybe he just gets a fine tacked on.
Possibly. What do you know of that, Mark? Like, there wasn't any concern of that after the game, was there?
No, there wasn't. Not even a buzz in Florida. Like, as you guys just mentioned, the Panthers didn't seem too concerned about it. Schmidt came back. Nylander's got no history. He was pretty punitive in the sense that it pretty much ended the game. I think it's pretty much just everyone looked at it and said an unfortunate play by a guy who didn't have any intent and has no track record. and let's just all move on with our lives. But yeah, I mean, because it's Toronto, because of how things have been going, you're almost like, oh man, are they going to lose Willie for a game or two, and then they're not even going to be up a forward coming back on Saturday? But no, it just seems like it was what you guys said. It's an unfortunate play, and what it was handled appropriately, and you move on.
Yeah, with Mark Masters, our Maple Leaf reporter, leaves Tampa on Saturday. So the goalie carousel is an interesting one, and I think it's been lost in the shuffle a little bit because they haven't been playing. And because they haven't been playing many games, the focus has been on the injuries and the recovery and when is Matthews going to be back and Nyes and Domi, etc. They gave Stolarz a week off. Wall played last Wednesday and Saturday. He hadn't played in I believe, 10 days. Plays last night. He didn't love his start. I didn't think they lost because of him. I thought he was fine. I thought he made some decent saves, and he was okay. But where do we go on Saturday? Because Wall has been playing so well. Yet prior to this, Stolarz has been the man. And if Stolarz doesn't play on Saturday, that'll be one game in 2 weeks for a guy who's leading the league in a save percentage statistic right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure they handled this great unless there's some sort of injury concern with Stolarz, who hasn't missed a practice or anything during this pretty light part of the schedule for them. They give Wool both starts last week, and that means Stolarz has his longest break of the season. He's the hottest goalie in hockey. I don't know why you'd want to not keep him in a rhythm and split the starts. I know Wool had a shutout and played well, but I would have gone to Stolarz in that game against Utah just to keep him going so there's not a long break. He is used to long breaks. Obviously, he's been a backup the last few years, so he mentioned that, but this is the longest break of this season when he was really feeling good. So I would have, wanted to keep him in a rhythm, but they didn't do that. And then he mentioned last night that he didn't like that Barkov power play goal in particular. Leg has to go outside the post, not on the inside. And he said by the end of the night he was more in a rhythm. It's a long layoff for a guy who's feeling good. So now what do? Well, I mean, at least the schedule's picking up, right? So they're both going to play a lot. I suspect you go to Wool on Saturday in Tampa, and then Stolarz on Monday, and then they go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So they're both. I imagine we're going to get more back into a rotation here, but I felt for Stolarz that was an emotional start for him. He said high emotions. He gets the Stanley Cup ring in the morning. He's sees Bobrovsky, a guy he credits with helping him get his kind of career on that starter trajectory last year by spending time with them, and then he gets out-dueled by him. It was a tough spot for him last night, and you know what? I love the accountability though. I love to hear a player come out and say, I felt I could have been better, and that was the difference in the game. I give him a lot of credit for that. I like that. I like that attitude, and I hopefully he can get back in a rhythm now that the schedule is going to pick up.
Yeah, it's I guess it's just the uniqueness of the schedule in many ways because they just haven't played that much recently. Yet this goaltending tandem was always likely to go up and down. Right, Mark? Like, it's been a very kind of unique start because Wall got injured out of nowhere, and then Stolarz was thrown in there and had to play as much as he did. But now, since Wall's return, his numbers have been very, very strong. Could this actually be a precursor of what we should expect the rest of the way?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a pretty equal split. We all know the story. Wool's got the contract that hasn't even the extension that hasn't even kicked in yet. The organization thinks very highly of him, and the feeling coming into the year was he was the 1A and the one in the tandem, and now they obviously wanted to get him rolling last week, but it's been such a weird schedule. They had like 2 sets of back-to-backs and then like no games for 3 weeks, and now it's going to pick up. So I expect, I think it's going to be a pretty even split, and then you can ride the hot hand at times if there's a guy that looks a little worn down, or if there's a guy who's had a tough start and needs a little bit of a reset. You go that way, but yeah, I mean, at this point you got Wolves feeling good, and Stolarz shouldn't. I wouldn't imagine his confidence is hit too much from the one start in Florida, and you just kind of let them both roll and kind of see where things go and just play it off that.
Mark, getting back to Auston Matthews and him potentially being available for Saturday, you guys are around them every day. Is it just kind of, off the table, don't ask him what's up or what's wrong, like what was the problem, or is it, is it behind the scenes kind of people know kind of what it is? Obviously you don't want to have a target on him. Like, is it just business as usual? Hey, might be available soon. Like, how do you approach going into a scrum with him to make sure you either ask the appropriate question or just move on and just see how he's doing type of thing?
Yeah, it's really a tough story to cover because you want to respect the player's privacy, right? He's a private guy. He doesn't want to, volunteer his health-related issues, and yet it's such a humongous story for the team in the sports world. And he jets off to Germany. That's certainly unusual. I haven't covered something like that middle of the season. So, we talked to him the other day, and I just said, what do you like about the setup in Germany? And he kind of pushed back a bit and said, what do you mean? And did not offer more details there. And, yeah, it's just you just try and ask it as generally as possible, and you try and get as much information as you can about where things are at there. But, yeah. It's a tricky. I got to tell you, it's a tricky one for me. I think for everyone on the beat, and you're just looking for any sort of sliver of information. But that's the way it goes. And I think he was asked what his days look like in Germany, and he said something along the lines of, "I'm not going to give you an hour-by-hour itinerary." It was a direct flight. He kind of said that with a smile. So it's tough. It's tough. I respect it. He's a private guy. It's his life. It's his health care. But at the same time, I think. You still have a right, and you still try and get as much information as you can. But we don't know a ton about the best player on the team's trip to Germany in the middle of the season. That's just the way it is.
Mark, you've interviewed Mitch Marner hundreds of times. Yesterday after the game, did you kind of see an older, kind of more veteran Mitch Marner? We've all kind of described his relationship with the media as different. I think we can all agree on that. But it just seemed like a kind of a veteran, mature Marner, kind of accountability, all of it in his post-game hits yesterday. Yeah,
I don't know. I try not to read too much. I feel like because I'm there in the scrums, you magnify it too much. You don't want to, one game, one loss. But I liked it. I liked what I heard. He's expressed some frustration with all the injuries, which is just human. But at the same time, reined it back in and said, we gotta, we're doing a good job defensively. We can get to the net more. Craig Berube was pretty open about that. Despite the injuries, we're not working hard enough to get to the net. Can't have, a defenseman leading the team in shots on goal. They're creating the rebound opportunities. We're not getting there. And Marner had, touched on that as well. So I think, Marner has really stepped up in this time. We've seen it in the past, but it feels like he's taken on the responsibility of the goal scoring, and he's handling things on and off the ice the way you'd want to see it in this time. Again, I'm not sure it's too different than what we've seen from the past from him. In these moments when Matthews has been out, he has stepped up, and he has been a voice off the ice, and he has been certainly a leader on the ice, and we've seen that in this stretch. I hesitate to read too much into it. I know we're caught up in the moment, and he's been so good, but I'm not sure it's completely all that different from what we've seen and heard from him in the past.
Mark, yesterday was the best bar night in the world. In the world, like in the United States. Can you explain to us and the listeners what you did after the game? It's a green light special to just get after it and do fun things. Can you detail what you got up to?
I got up to nothing. I transcribed the interviews. I waited for word on the Leafs, and they posted it as a day off to today, and then set my alarm and went to bed. Basically, these game days, they take a lot out of you. It was a 7:30 start too. Don't forget that last night in South Florida. So I'm on a regiment here. I'm on a pretty strict regiment. It's only halfway through the trip. Wanted to be ready for Tampa and for the big practice Friday, and that was my night. Very uneventful, I would say.
Tampa's on Saturday, and it was Wednesday night.
7:30 start though, right? Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yeah.
7:30. Yeah. You got to remember that. That's a pretty crazy start time.
There's no trivia bar in South Beach you could go down.
There has to be
tricky.
Trivia down there.
It's tricky. We're staying out at the arena, so we're not in downtown, Fort Lauderdale. And you're in the grind of the season right now. You're in the teeth of it. I got to look over the horizon, take a look at World Juniors coming up. I want to save some energy here. I don't want to burn myself, even on a big night like Thanksgiving Eve.
Oh man! Wow. Let me put it this way: Jack Armstrong was in New Orleans last night.
Oh my God!
I guarantee you, Jack found a way to get out after that.
After being hungover, because he went out for the guy's birthday the night before.
Right, they were out the night before. That's right. Anyway, it is. Hey, listen, it's early in the year. World Juniors, like you said, right around the corner. Fire one off tonight. Tonight's your night. I can feel it down in Tampa.
Take it deep in Tampa.
We're not there yet, guys. We're still here. We're still in Fort Lauderdale. We're practicing here on tomorrow, and then
go sit at the elbow room. Go sit at the elbow room
nights
tonight.
in South Beach,
dude. If you don't do something tonight, you should be embarrassed of yourself.
You're banned from the show. You're banned from the show if we don't hear a story about Matt.
Like, do you not have any colleagues down there that have reached out and said you want to go like hammer some beers tonight? You haven't talked to one person. Nothing like that.
Sean McKenzie on the beat.
Who's down
there?
Not Sean down there. David Alter's down here. It was a big night for him. 300th straight for a game covering the Leafs, which is pretty incredible.
Doesn't he want to get after it?
Come on, get Alter
he's
going.
Getting after it, but I don't know if I want to tie my. Things might get too crazy on that front. So I just got to keep it quiet here. Maybe Uber Eats, watch a little football, do some prep for tomorrow's practice. Figure out what I want to ask Auston.
Okay.
And hit the hay early and catch up on the sleep. That's the beauty of these 2-day breaks between games when there's no travel is you get a good night's sleep in. So that's what I'm most looking forward to tonight, guys.
All right, Masters, enjoy your sleep, and we'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, guys.
Mark Masters getting an early shutdown in tonight. I love it. And
you know what? He might just be lying. Like, he might just be like, yeah,
That's
I'm going
possible.
to bed.
That's why I love Jack.
Because
Because Jack's like, I'm going out like right now.
Yeah,
Jack hangs up the
exactly.
phone and is flooring it.
Apparently, Jack loves the karaoke, man.
Well, he
I've
can
heard
sing.
that,
He
actually.
shut his Christmas
Armstrong
album, right?
at karaoke
Yeah.
must be a legend.
Yeah, Jack has the Christmas album out, man.
Remember, like, Jack can actually sing.
He
Yes.
did
Like,
a
he can-
concert last year.
Yes,
That's right.
yes, at Christmas. That's my point. Going to karaoke with Jack, like, I would love to do that because, you know, what you see is what you get. Masters is putting on an act because you're right. Like, he might say, going to bed, and all of a sudden it's out the back door and he's got a leather coat on or a
Yes.
jean jacket
Stealth.
with cigarettes. And then, like,
Stealth attack.
That's, like, he's hiding it. That's what it is. He's hiding it.
I think you might be onto something there. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel coming up. We're tracking the Cowboy game. It's 13-10, almost at the end of the first half. I wouldn't say this is an offensive bonanza down there in Dallas. 13-10 Cowboys. And I've got my list coming up. I've got my list, the 5 worst trades in Leaf history, according to yours truly. Everyone's going to battle me on this. I know where it's going.
And we're only doing it because we're thankful. It's American
It's a thing of the
Thanksgiving.
past. It's
Yes,
not a
it's
negative
never
thing.
happening again.
It's a positive thing. Just like what is going on with Al's brother, as we've sent Al's brother out somewhere in the city with a pair of Leaf tickets, and you have to guess where he's hiding for your chance to win them. The 4th clue of the week. You guys ready to hear from Al's brother?
Go for it.
Yes.
Hey OD fans, it's Thursday. Are you ready for your final clue to find out where I've been hiding all week to get those Leafs and Blackhawks tickets? Here it is. The place that I am currently in was once the home building for William Nylander.
Okay, we know where he is now. Obviously, you know where he is now.
Yes.
Well, you've heard all 4 clues. Tomorrow, you got to tune in to hear the cue to call. When you hear the cue to call tomorrow, the first caller through with the correct location wins a pair of tickets to see the Leafs play the Blackhawks on Monday night. Connor Bedard scored last night. Shout out to Connor Bedard, or Bedsy, as Al's brother would call him. Find Al's brother, brought to you by McAlpine Ford in Aurora. Our family, the Ford family, and you. Full details at tsn1050.ca. All right, probably my most anticipated list coming up. All right, so we're going to be thankful that this is a thing of the past. That's all it is. Thankful it's a thing of the past. Thankful it will not be a thing of the future. My list is coming up. Best Bet's coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right. I had a tough night last night. I had a difficult evening because I was preparing. I was preparing for this list, a list that has a lot of people anticipating what's going to be on it and how it's going to look, because this conversation came up spontaneously last week. It's come up spontaneously 25 times over the last decade that the three of us have been talking about the Maple Leafs and their history. And Leaf trade talk is just great icebreaker conversation. You know, if you're in an awkward chat with a guy, don't really know him, but you find out he's a Leaf fan, start talking trades.
Dude, you could spend all day at the pool in Cancun with a Leaf fan about trades that have happened in the past.
Next thing you know, the sun's down, the staff is left, and you're like, we got to get out of here. But as I stated earlier, and Joe from the Bridge naturally takes issue with this for whatever reason, obviously it goes without saying, there's no guarantee the Leafs were going to pick the players that got picked
Right.
with their draft picks that they've traded. Obviously, that goes without saying. There's no guarantees. But as I stated earlier, what I found out, outside of names like Scott Niedermayer and Roberto Luongo, Roman Josi was picked with a Leaf pick, Mike Camilleri with a Leaf pick, Seth Jarvis, as we know, Tyler Seguin, top 50 Dougie Hamilton, as we know, John Gibson, Travis Konechny, Ricard Raquel. Those are only the ones I found last night. There's way more in the past. It happens. And I'm sure there are countless examples of Leafs taking players with draft picks that they acquired from somewhere else that obviously sting in retrospect. Mm-hmm. But a couple of honorary mentions before I get to my top 5.
All right.
Okay? This isn't necessarily a trade, but not protecting Jared McCann from Seattle.
Yeah. That one's tough.
They protected Kerfoot and Hull, I believe.
Yes, they did.
Kerfoot and Hull instead of Jared McCann. And that guy is
40 that year.
lighting it up in Seattle right now and has been for years. So that one stings. Shout out to our boy Carlo Koliakovo and Alex Steen. Lee Stepniak for Steen and Koliakovo at the time made no sense.
Well, Cliffy Fletcher claimed he wanted to get a right-handed shot in there, so he brought in Stempniak. For Alex Steen and Coco, they were both like 24.
Exactly. It made no sense. Like, both of them went to Seattle or to St. Louis, and look at Steen. He's the GM now. That's how good it went for him in St. Louis. The guy's
won a
the
cup.
GM.
Won a cup and was basically like a 1B captain there.
Yes. We mentioned this earlier. Patrick Marleau and a first for cap relief. Now, we understand the circumstance there and the context of it, obviously. But still, that pick turned into Seth Jarvis, okay? This one, good one, Randy, good one. The Randy Carlyle trade is one that, if you're a Leaf fan of a certain generation, it still bothers you to this day. They traded Randy Carlyle for Dave Burrows, who was like a veteran. I think he was into his mid-30s, and Randy Carlyle was like 20 or 21 at the time. He goes to Pittsburgh, wins at Norris, plays over 1,000 games in the league, was a great defenseman. Randy Carlyle for Dave Burrows. These are just honorary mentions, okay? I don't need to keep going.
This is honorary.
This isn't my list. This isn't my list.
That's what's scary. This isn't a list. This is an appy. This is a shrimp cocktail and a little glass of Chardonnay on the side.
This is cheese and crackers and a piece of salami. Like,
this is you wait over there. We'll call you when your table's ready. Marchman for Malgin is an awful trade. Mason Marchman for Dennis Malgin is a horrendous trade. John Kordick for Russ Courtnall. They traded Russ Courtnall for John Kordick.
I think Rusty was a 50-goal man.
He went on to have a very, very good career. He was a good Leaf. And Kordick, Kordick was a fighter, and he had a presence and all that. And then trading up to get Tyler Biggs, and the picks that they gave up to get him were John Gibson and Ricard Raquel. That's who Anaheim took with the Leaf picks. John Gibson and Ricard Raquel, both still playing in the NHL. Tyler Biggs obviously never came close to playing.
Hockey News can't find that
Can't
guy.
find
like
him.
He never played one game, did
never
he? Like,
once in the NHL. I'm not sure he played much in the American League.
That was a part of They're Going to Be Nasty era.
That was Burke, pugnacious and all that kind of stuff. Big, tough guy for the American team. Traded up to get him, gave up picks that turned into Gibson and Ricard Raquel. So those are the appetizers, all right?
Okay.
Now we sit down to a 5-course meal. Now, I want to set this straight before I get to it. The theme of my list, for the most part, is desperate plays at wrong times, okay? Desperate trades at wrong times. There are some justifications for bad trades. There are times where it just didn't work out. You say, you know what, I understood where you're going there. And then there are times where there's just no way to actually explain it. Now, there's a combination of both of those throughout my list. At number 5,
you really put a lot into this.
This is something that I take a lot of pride in, because this is my whole life. I've told you, like growing up in this city, and my dad being the biggest Leaf fan on earth, he would tell me about the Sittler trade. I didn't even mention that. They just gave Darryl basically to Philly. Like that was Ballard, and just get rid of him. And Darryl Sittler, basically, they just said you have to leave. Number 5, Nazem Kadri for Alex Kerfoot and Tyson Barrie. All right. this deal is not about them being desperate because they were a good team at that point. They were a good team, right? And Matthews was here, and Marner, and Nylander, and Tavares was here. And I know what happened with Nas in the playoffs. We understand that. But this is one where now hindsight can be 20/20. You can look back on it. Nazem Kadri was making, I believe, $4 million per year
on
at that
a long-term
point.
deal.
4.5, yeah.
4.5 for like a few years left on his ticket. He goes to Colorado. The year they won the Stanley Cup, he was one of the 20 best players in the league that year. He was phenomenal that year, and he had a different way of playing the game than all the other core players that stuck around after he left. And you know who had the exact same attitude as a lot of these guys when they arrived? Kerfoot and Barry. Skilled guys in Tyson. Barry, you could tell 10 games into his reign here, it was just a disaster. It wasn't going to work.
And it never got better.
It never got better. And Kerfoot, the same thing. Good pros, but that deal just, in my opinion, the fifth worst deal in Leaf history.
And I gotta always wonder, like, why did Kerfoot get so much runway, and everyone had this love affair with Kerfoot? It's because of that trade.
Yes.
Well, he was that
you know what
Swiss
I mean?
Army
They always
knife,
defend it because of the trade that you make for it.
Right. It's like taking a guy first overall in the top 10. You got to keep playing him.
Yeah, 9 lives. Plus, he was a versatile guy. Played center, played wing, killed penalties.
Decent
and the
player.
1 year, I think he got 50 points. That's the problem. He had like
Yes.
50 points in a good season. But, you know, he's still kicking around.
Decent player. These are pros. Tyson Barrie, good player. Good player.
Yeah.
But the deal, let's call it what it is, especially Nas loved playing in Toronto, loved being a Leaf, and Leaf fans love the guy. Obviously, the suspensions were stupid. He had to own it. But he was tough. He hit. He fought. He scored. Like, he was just a great, great Leaf. Homegrown, drafted by the team.
And he went to Colorado in the first playoffs there. He got a massive suspension.
He
there.
got kicked
but
out of that
I still
series.
don't care.
Yeah.
I still don't
Still
care.
a bad trade. Awful trade. Number 4. This one might surprise you guys. This is the beginning of I can kind of understand where you're going, but you shouldn't have gone there. Okay? You weren't in a position to do it because your
Give it to
team
me.
wasn't good enough. Number 4, Phil Kessel for 2 firsts and a second. All right? Phil is a very good player. Very good player. And he was a good Leaf. That team was terrible. They were one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the league.
Yes.
Those picks became Tyler Seguin, second overall. Second overall. That's what they handed over for Phil. And then Dougie Hamilton, 9th overall the next year. And, like, those players, on top of it, if you don't acquire Phil, you don't pay Phil. So you have money in the cap era to spend elsewhere. And what Burke should have done was shown up and said, this team's not good enough, and I'm going to be patient. Instead, he trades for Phil. He signs Komisarek. He signs Boschman. He brings in Colton Orr. And they were one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the league. They were awful. And the deal just simply never should have happened.
Yeah, I mean, Phil got his 30 goals and was a star player.
Wasn't Phil's fault.
Oh,
Wasn't
I know.
Kessel's
He did what he
fault.
did, but when you look back on it, retrospective analysis, it's like, why did you do that?
What were you thinking? And not protecting the picks? How do you not make it top 5 protected? Top 10?
That's the crazy part. It's like not making sure that it's arrogance going, you know what, we won't be at the bottom
That's
of the
exactly what it was. I know I'm building a great team here. We won't be there.
Right.
And
then you ended
Tyler
up there.
Seguin, the next year, they had to chew on Seguin coming. And that was Hall or Seguin. Who are you going to get? Local kid. He grew up in Brampton. And anyway, I got Kessel for 2 firsts and a second at 4. At 3, this one hurts me because it features, one of my 2 or 3 favorite Leafs of all time. But when Wendell Clark got traded back, Wendell, Matthew Schneider came back. DJ Smith was in this deal. Kenny Johnson went the other way, who was a really good prospect, defensive prospect at the time. He never really made it. Darby Hendrickson, I think, went the other way. And a first-round pick in 97 that was not protected. That pick turned into Roberto Luongo. Roberto Luongo was that pick. And the reason why this trade is there is because there's a weird timeline in Leaf history where when Gilmore arrived and they went on that run in 93 and 94, and then you get to 99, they hire Quinn, they sign Kudrow, Caberlet shows up as a rookie, and we know what happened the rest of that way for the next 5 or 6 years. That middle ground was ugly. They were really not a good team. Larry Murphy got booed out of town. Remember,
that was
Burns,
the end of the Gardens.
Yeah.
It was the end of the Gardens. Burns left, Dougie left, and they were desperate, and they said, let's bring back Wendell, let's bring in Schneider. Again, not the players' faults, but they weren't any good. It wasn't going to work. And they were trying to revive 93 and 94, and it was gone. The window was closed. And they gave up young picks, young players, but more importantly, a young pick that now we know the history. It turned out to be a Hall of Fame goaltender. It was a deal, and that was the deal where I was referencing my dad earlier. He was so angry because he knew they weren't any good. He's like, this is a Ballard era move. This is a move out of desperation. This is a move where you're not going anywhere. What are you trying to do? It's not fair to Wendell. And that was one of the great returns ever. Clark walking through the tunnel. Remember him coming out of the room? And I think they played Dallas his first game back. He scored. It was electric. It was amazing. I think Gilmore set Wendell up too. And it wasn't Wendell's fault. It wasn't Schneider's fault. The team wasn't very good, and it was desperate, and it burned them in the end. Number 2 on the list, Tuukka Rask for Andrew Raycroft. Rask for Raycroft is just an absurd trade to make, especially when you consider the reporting that I believe has been validated. They had Justin Pogge in the system as well. It was Pogge and Rask, and by all accounts, they told Boston, you pick. You can have one of them. We want Raycroft. You pick whoever you want. Boston was within their division. And here's what bothers me 20 years later, is if that's the case, all right, if you tell Peter Chiarelli, who I believe was the GM at the time, you pick and he picks Rask, you give him the other guy. Yeah. He's telling you Rask is the better goalie. He's saying that to you.
Oh, here's another King Daddy topper on top of it. And I don't know, and Andrew Raycroft will let me know, but there is some people that have said that Boston was going to put Razor on waivers, and they could have had him for nothing.
That has been reported, I believe, diligently, that Tim Thomas had arrived, and it was Thomas's team then, and there was another goalie they had. They were going to basically let him go for nothing.
Yeah, they were gonna cut him loose because they were like, it didn't work out. They wanted to give Razor somewhere else to go play, and that's just.
And they got Tuukka Rask instead of waiving him, and Justin Pogge never made it. It's just an all-around disaster.
The crazy part is, wasn't he up for like Rookie of the Year?
I believe Boston? He won Rookie of the Year. He was up for it for sure in Boston, Noodles. He was for sure.
I think he won it or was up. And then when he got to the Leafs, didn't he played
a ton of games and won a ton of games.
Most wins in a season for the Leafs? He wasn't Tuukka. But it's such a weird, the way it played out, having Pogge in the system, getting, trading away. I don't understand how that all went down.
And within the division too, Noodles. Yeah, how do you let Boston pluck Tuukka Rask from you?
Take your pick.
You finally drafted a guy. That was the Sid draft too, where the lottery came out. They were hoping to win the lottery. They didn't. They picked 20th, I believe, and they took Rask, and it was a great pick. And then Fergie, desperate times, said, I got to get a veteran goalie in here because Eddie's leaving. Take Tuukka, and we'll take Razor. And you know the history.
Well, I can neither confirm or deny that.
That is true. And number 1 on the list, the worst trades of all time. This is one that I think most Leaf fans of a certain age would know this was coming. I think most younger Leaf fans have probably heard of this. But it's Tom Curvers for a first. And in my lifetime, there's never been anything close. And the reason for that is that pick went to New Jersey. Eventually, they took Scott Niedermayer, 3rd overall. Yeah. But what makes it the worst trade ever, and I know I'm basically reiterating what my dad's been telling me my whole life, that was the Lindros draft. And everybody in Toronto knew about that kid since he was 12. And they circled 91. It was Lindros, and he was coming. And they traded the pick without knowing where it was going to land for them for Tom Curvers. With all due respect to Curvers, I think Tom Curvers has told guys, I think Ray said this, he's like, what do you want out of me, man? It's not about any of these guys. They just got traded here. But the Leafs, I think Gord Stellick has confirmed this, the Leafs had to trade to get better down the stretch so that they wouldn't hand the 1st overall pick to Jersey. That's how embarrassed they were. They were like, we're going to hand Eric Lindros to New Jersey for Tom Curvers. So we have to make deals so we finish 3rd last instead of last. That's how disgusting that trade was. And you know what's even more gross?
I just need to back that. There was a chance that they could have been so bad they could have got Eric Lindros at number one.
They were in the running for Lindros. They were in the running for Lindros.
And what was the time frame of the deal?
The deal was the year before.
In the summer?
I got to look it up exactly when it was. It was either the summer or the trade deadline. It was like a future pick. In 91, here's our first rounder. We'll take Tom Curvers. And again, I remember vividly that it was, what are you doing? That's the Lindros. And in the late 80s, man, you know this, the Leafs were not a good team.
No, dude.
Right.
Like, they were a bad team that had a very good chance at the first pick overall. And they traded for Tom Curvers, and they almost gave up Lindros. And what is so Leafy is New Jersey got lucky because Niedermayer had a greater career. You know, Eric in his prime, but Scott Niedermayer is Scott Niedermayer, like one of the 4 or 5 greatest defensemen of all time, won cups, everything. Yeah. Scott Niedermayer for Tom Curvers, and it could have been Lindros. That's your number one, and I think it's indisputable. I'm sorry, I still get sick over that.
I just can't stop thinking about if the Leafs got the number 1 overall pick in draft, like how different things could have been.
Could you imagine that, dude? If Eric Lindros was a Leaf.
Eric Lindros closed
from day
down
one,
the
not
Gardens.
at the end.
From day one, exactly. Exactly.
Right,
Lindros is your guy. Lindros, and that's in 91. Who knows if you still make the Gilmore deal? I don't know if you do or you don't, but, you know, Eric Lindros. That was the Lindros McLennan draft, and they traded that pick away.
Yes.
Imagine Lindros into Dougie in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Sickening.
Dude, it's a TV show, man. I would watch. You get Jeremy Schaap and Hayes on a podium, and like that whole thing is a.
I could go
30
on.
And
Eric, here's the thing: is Eric would have come to Toronto.
Oh, of course
he wouldn't have given he wouldn't have given the Quebec treatment.
No,
like I was at that draft. I watched him put the jersey over his.
Dude, he would have moonwalked up to that stage to put the Leaf.
He would have been ecstatic to be a Leaf. You know, he's from here. He grew. I think he was raised in London.
He was a Leaf. I played with him.
Yeah, exactly.
Toronto.
I know.
But the thing is, it's like in this. I remember as a kid. Oh, you probably went to see him play. I remember my dad brought me to see him play when he was with the Generals.
Absolutely.
It was like, you got to see this kid. You will not believe this guy.
Yes. My dad did the same thing. He was playing for Detroit CompuWare like as a 16-year-old, and my dad took me to St. Mike's Arena, and there was this guy out there that was just grabbing grown-ass men and throwing them around the ice, and I was like, that's insane. I'm like, this wasn't like, I thought I was going to see something like Gretzky. It had the same kind of feeling, but it was completely different.
Well, I'm sure the rink was packed because everywhere he went, it was like,
I remember looking at him because it was not a big arena. I think it was St. Mike's Arena, and I said to myself, that guy's too big for the ice.
Yeah,
massive. But there was 2 goals, 2 assists. Dude, I got to see that guy every time Oshawa played my brother in Peterborough. It was 2 goals and 3 assists every time.
Well, and that
run
was
5 people over.
Huge rivalry, right? Is Peterborough and Oshawa, like massive.
Him and Rob Pearson and Jared Scalde, I think, was the left winger. Like those guys.
I love it.
That line in junior, I remember watching it. It was like, that's disgusting.
I saw Rob Pearson recently, actually. He gave you a shout-out, Noodles. Both of you guys said say hi to the boys for me. Yeah, they were.
Good guy.
That was, man, what a line that was. They won the Mem Cup, too. They,
insane line.
Rob Pearson's head was the size of Lindros. It's like he was a big
massive
dude,
head.
too. Eh?
He's still got a massive head.
I know. He's a good guy.
Big
I like
dude.
He's a coach now, right?
Yeah, he's been coaching in out by this area for a while. And he was a Leaf. He's a Leaf alumni, Rob Pearson.
Yep.
But yeah, that's number 1 on the list because of that. It was everyone in Toronto, every Leaf fan knew this kid's coming. Lindros. Could you imagine if he was a Leaf? And they ripped that away from Leaf fans to not even be able to dream of that possibility. And then on top of it, okay, all good. Didn't end up with the first pick. They only handed over the 3rd overall pick. Who did that turn out to be? Scott Niedermayer. Oh, okay. Awesome. There it is.
That's Strutty. Well, at least it could have been worse. Like, you know, it runs in the family. Like, you know that Strutty is Niedermayer's
cousin,
first cousin, right?
Right. That means Strutty would have had to actually like the Leafs.
Yeah,
So maybe
there you go.
in the
That's
best
right.
interest of our world, it was better this happened that way. Because if Niedermayer was a Leaf forever, Strutty would have to pretend like he kind of likes the Leafs.
That's true. That's true.
And that would have been a very different experience. So
It's
there it
funny.
is. All right, I'm going to have the 5 greatest trades in Leaf history coming up.
Gotta
Maybe
have
next
that.
week. I think I probably have to follow up.
You have to, man.
Let's be positive next week. All right, it's all good. Come back with our best bets brought to you by FanDuel. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, I didn't even know this layer, and it actually gets more and more painful. Ryan tweeting this in, that the Leafs eventually traded Tom Curvers to Vancouver for Brian Bradley, and then they exposed Bradley to expansion, and Tampa picked him up, and he scored 42 goals his first year in Tampa. Wow. Could have been Lindros, could have been Niedermayer, could have been Brian Bradley. Wasn't any of that. Time now for our best bets. Brought to you by FanDuel. Packers 3.5. I'm laying the points tonight. I'm on it. Josh Jacobs anytime touchdown, and I think Jordan Love puts up some touchdowns tonight himself. 2+ touchdowns for him. That's paying plus money. Those are your plays tonight. That's your same game parlay. Packers laying 3.5. Jordan Love 2+ touchdowns thrown. Josh Jacobs gets in the end zone tonight. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel, home of the same game parlay. OverDrive same game parlay. Please play responsibly. 19+. Physically located in Ontario. All right. Tomorrow we start looking ahead to the Leafs on Saturday. What else is going on throughout the NHL? We're coming off NFL games. We'll have an NFL game happening while we're on the air tomorrow. Kansas City against Vegas as well.
And tomorrow we're going to do a hashtag I'm thankful for Toronto sports. Something.
Okay.
You got to come up with something.
Spin things around here, right? Thankful all those deals are in the past. Now we move forward, and I love where we're at. I love where our head's at. All right, thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate it. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
Let's go, my Dolphins. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.